I'm Mike Coyle, and you're watching Insidexploration. Today I'm here with Janet Lee Sheriff, CEO of Golden Predator Mining Corp., listed on the TSX Venture under GPY. Janet, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. Appreciate your time.
So before we get into the Brewery Creek project itself, I was hoping that you can give me a little bit of insight into your background and what you bring to the company.
Thanks, Mike. My background is in economics. I studied at Queen's University. Decided to go to the Yukon to pay off my student loan, and summarily forgot to leave. Spent 25 years there before I finally left. Kids were born there. But most importantly, I lived in Faro, and I didn't work at the mine. I worked for the Yukon government, and I traveled between Faro and Ross River, another community, First Nation community. And what I saw and what I bring to the company is that those decades of experience in working with the First Nation communities. I focus on social licensing. I've worked with every First Nation, every government, every political party. But what I saw in those early years that I was gifted with is mining is the best industry to create local wealth. And so in focusing on building a mine, we bring together the benefits to the shareholders and the community. And I think that's really the role that I bring.
So talk to me a little bit about the rest of your team as well. I want to get into some of the things that you've done in the Yukon, but I'd like a little bit of an overview about the rest of your team as well.
Yeah, building a mine is, it takes a team of very diverse skills to cover operations, engineering, environment. So we brought together people that have all those skills, but a key criteria was a strong corporate memory of the project, Brewery Creek, which is the mine that we intend to put into production. And important because we wanted to move as fast as we can. We've been given a great gift with this gold market, and we don't want to lose that window. So we brought in Mike Nizlowski, our former chief operating officer, who was with the project before and increased our ounces fivefold through exploration. He has worked with Coeur and Teck, running mines around the world. Jim Hesketh is helping with our engineering and startup. Jim was with Rothschilds when they retired the debt at Brewery Creek, so technically he knew it and liked the project. Importantly, Jim has operated mines in Montana, California, Nevada, and the Yukon. And Jim has restarted a heap leach gold mine, which Brewery Creek is. We also have brought the former Deputy Minister of Environment in to lead us with government relations, and he is there with a strong memory of how they handled the financial security, reclamation, and temporary closure. He's worked with the government and a number of mining companies. So really a strong team that has that history. We all work together and trying to run as fast as we can.
So the Yukon's a pretty friendly mining jurisdiction. I could see why it would be attractive, but you really set yourself up as a company in the Yukon. Why?
When I met my husband, who is the chair of the board, he was very successful in uranium and successful in gold in the southwest of the United States. He came up before we were married and saw the mineral potential of the Yukon and really saw it as an untapped mineral potential similar to what Nevada has. And he, as a geologist, was excited by this. The Yukon is mineral rich. Even though they've had 100 years of mining history, and I found a great book, Bill's a data collector.
Oh,
This
cool.
from the early 1900s, Klondike gold fields.
Wow.
In our library here at home, and really speaks to the rich history of the Yukon. Modern day, it's, things are different. There's different processes with First Nation governments and inclusion. And I would describe the Yukon, even with its history, as a bit of a young jurisdiction. I think the biggest challenge the Yukon has is growing a private sector and growing a mining sector. Government's big. and we through mines, and there's several in the region now, the private sector will grow, and then we'll see continuation of that growth.
You kind of touched on it there, and I want to ask you about some of the things that you've done to create those relationships within the Yukon, given that you've been operating there for so long. What has allowed you to progress in the Yukon so efficiently?
I think my early years in the Yukon, where I was gifted with time with the elders. They saw somebody that had some respect and wanted to work in a way that worked for them, and they taught me. And so I took that knowledge and I tried to use it as a way of bringing along the community in their backyard. You don't move into a neighborhood and have a party the first night you're there with music blasting and liquor flowing. You act with respect in the neighborhood you move into. We bring that strong engagement, but we've also tried creative ways to work together. We formed the Yukon Mint. We put First Nation art on the coins. We had an elders in residence program at Three Aces where the elders lived with us all year. And I've always tried to incorporate elder counsel and guidance in any way that they're comfortable. And whatever the issue they have is an issue, and that's treated appropriately. So really about respect and being a good neighbor.
I very much appreciate the proactive way you go about forming those relationships and doing my research on the company. I was pretty impressed with a lot of the different things that you were doing. So kudos to you for doing so. So now let's talk about the Brewery Creek project. This is an exciting project. It's been under the radar for a number of years. You had some licensing issues to start out. That's all done behind you. You're moving forward. Feasibility study, resource update. Talk to us about your Brewery Creek project.
Oh, it's pretty exciting. It's been an incredibly busy 12 months. We did a big drill program last year, and we're busy with all the planning this year because we want to be a gold producer in 2 to 3 years. 100% owned. It's about 45 minutes drive from Dawson City, about 25 minutes from the Dawson City Airport, accessible by road, past producer under Viceroy. They operated from 96 to '02 and put it into temporary closure because of low gold prices. They chased the gold price down from 400 to 250. The hedge ran out. They went into temporary closure, left the licenses in place, and we renewed our mining leases just last year. So we've got mining leases for another 20 years. Go through that again. But I think Golden Predator's really undervalued because it's been sitting, waiting for this restart. And to that end, we did a big drill program last year. We're updating our mineral resource estimate, which is over 1.1 million ounces of indicated and inferred before the update, over a gram per ton, first world jurisdiction. Really hard to find another asset that's in that category with infrastructure on site and with a socioeconomic accord with the First Nation.
So talk to us a little bit about this resource estimate. How's it going to differ from last year's resource estimate, and what are your expectations?
The mineral resource estimate is due out in August, and it will incorporate all of the drilling to date on the property. So there's about 140 holes that will be incorporated into that resource estimate. What we did with the last round of drilling was it was focused on upgrading and expanding resources. So when Viceroy operated before, they left about 150,000 ounces. We've grown that to 1.1 plus. They didn't do a lot of exploration, but they did some really good work. We did great work as well. We've combined that, and we saw the potential to connect the existing pits on site. We have what's called the reserve trend, which runs for about 9 kilometers. And that's the area that's licensed of the 180 square kilometer property with lots of exploration upside as well. And we wanted to connect the pits to see if we could make the project even more economic. A series of small pits have larger pits, bigger equipment, increases the economics. So that we think we've achieved that with the drilling that we did, and that will be incorporated into the resource estimate, as well as reconciling past productions. So we've got a good solid number. In the resource estimate that we have now, I need to be clear, we do not include the run-of-mine ore that was left on the heap leach pad.
Mhm.
Viceroy ran run-of-mine. We see about 250,000 ounces left on the heap. They did not crush. We would pick it up and crush it, but that is not included in the mineral resource estimate. We feel we can get about 50% recovery, which, considering that it was already run through, that's a decent number. And that would be in addition to the resource estimate that you see now.
Excellent. So you also have a feasibility study coming out for the end of the year. You must be pretty excited about that. That's going to lay the foundation for whether or not you bring this to construction. What's your thoughts about the feasibility study?
So Kappas Cassidy is the author of the restart study that's looking at the heap leach pad. And then Tetra Tech is doing the mine planning that would bring new oxide onto the pad. So between the two, we're doing the full construction schedule, implementation, and then Kappas wraps it up with the bankable feasibility study, because they're doing the numbers that are putting in the ADR plant and relining the ponds that are there. So that is expected to be complete by the end of this year, and that will give us the final complete plan and the ability to go seek financing.
On that note, financing. Will you be able to utilize the leftover material on the heap leach pad? What's your company's current cash position, and do you foresee having to go to market to get this project started?
Yeah, all good questions, Mike. Our current cash position is about 8 million Canadian. We recently sold the Three Aces project to Seabridge for 300,000 shares of Seabridge, which has performed incredibly well since we transacted. It's about doubled. Um, so what that money is not intended for construction. We estimate, and again, all of this is subject to final independent numbers and a final production decision by the board. But I would estimate about 80 million US to 100 million US for the complete plan. The ADR plant and the lining of the ponds are necessary for both the reprocessing of the heap and the mine expansion. It's the same infrastructure. So while we were starting to look originally at something smaller, we expanded into something larger. Gold price changed $500 US since we started this process. As far as financing, our market cap is similar to our financing requirements, and I think that puts us in a very good position to look at a significant amount of debt versus too much dilution with equity. There may be a mix. To that, we have several parties that are looking at us, interested in the financing options upon completion of the information. So that would
Excellent.
follow early next year.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit more. You've got more than just Brewery Creek. Now, Brewery Creek's a really interesting project, but in doing my research, I found some really cool things you're doing with Group 11 technologies and, greener extraction technologies. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I find that stuff very fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. We're pretty excited about it as well. When we had the Three Aces project, we built and operated the first test processing plant in the Yukon. And that was to look at cyanide-free options
Mhm.
for processing. It also gave us a lot of metallurgical information that we needed. With the high-grade gold project, it just seemed like the wisest thing to do, not send it away. We ended up working with EnviroLeach and did the first in the world on-site test of their alternate solution, cyanide-free, environmentally friendly, all FDA-approved products in there. And we did a test on our sulfides, and we had over 90% recovery.
Mm.
And It worked faster and better than cyanide on that project. That said, I want to be clear, we are not applying that technology to Brewery Creek at this time. It's too early. This is going to take years to develop. But what that did was it showed us that it can be done. We ended up looking at partnering with another company as well into the fold called Encore Energy.
Mhm.
All of the in situ recovery experts from uranium are in there. There's people there that have had that hold patents for it, that were some of the founders of that technology, which is in place mining. So
Mhm.
you don't move the rocks, there's no tailings, there's no heap, there's no open pits, there's no underground. It's similar to a water processing or a water treatment system,
Mhm.
and been used successfully in uranium, and it's being used now in copper. Different solutions. So this is an option to use that technology with an environmentally friendly solution. And to that, we have formed a new company that's held by the three companies, and it's called Group 11. And that's we own 20% of that.
So you're pretty clear that you're not currently going to be using that on Brewery Creek. Is this something you might be looking at utilizing down the road as you get into the project? Or is the material not quite right for this particular technology?
It's not that the technology that it's not right for this technology. It just needs to be tested.
Mhm.
We need to field test it and lab test it. And so to that, we're working in jurisdictions or looking at working in jurisdictions where they have regulations for in situ.
Gotcha.
So we can start by doing some bulk sampling, some drilling, running the material through the lab, seeing if it recovers, and then expanding it out from there. So I wouldn't discount it, but I would say that it would be a number of years before we're in a position to look at a large scale application like that's underway, like Brewery Creek. That
Excellent.
that said, Brewery Creek will be cyanide.
Mhm.
Cyanide is managed under the International Cyanide Code, and companies that adhere to that do not have a track record of having incidents with cyanide problems. So, managed properly, it is an effective solution.
Mhm.
It's, we see an alternate, um, especially in jurisdictions where they're not cyanide friendly.
I certainly look forward to the advancement of that technology. It certainly piqued my interest when doing some research on your company. So congratulations on moving that forward. So fine, we'll just wrap this up here. What would you say to your shareholders? Why is now a good time to invest in Golden Predator?
I think it's a great time to invest in Golden Predator now for a number of reasons. The rising gold market, there's gold is a safe haven, and having a near-term producing asset that has revenue in the near term, it will be of benefit. We aren't looking at a lot of dilution through our programs right now, so we can get to that milestone as quick as possible. I think our market cap is undervalued in the market right now, and I think as we progress and reach the milestones of a resource estimate in the next month, feasibility study by the end of the year, potential financing decisions, development in the next year, and then moving into production by 2022. I think that the present market cap is an opportunity for investment.
Well, thank you, Janet, for taking the time to be so insightful on your project. And I look forward to sitting down with you as things develop. We'll get back together after the resource estimate comes out, and maybe again once the feasibility comes out and you have a clear indication of what you're going to be doing with the project moving into 2021.
That's great. Thanks very much, Mike. I really appreciate your time today.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure.